Today we're so honored to have Jack Canfield, who is the founder and co-creator of the New York Times #1 best-selling book series. We all know this, Chicken Soup for the Soul. Chicken Soup for the Soul, there are 101 titles in print, over 100 million copies sold in 41 languages. Time magazine called Chicken Soup for the Soul the publishing phenomenon of the decade. You may not also know that Jack's background includes a BA from Harvard University, and he has appeared on over 600 radio shows and 200 television shows, including Oprah, 2020, Inside Edition, The Today Show, Fox and Friends, the CBS Evening News, the NBC Nightly News, Eye to Eye, CNN's Talkback Live, PBS, QVC, and many, many others. We're very honored to have you with us today, Jack. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, my pleasure to be with you.
And I'm particularly delighted to have you on the call. First, of course, everyone knows about you because of your phenomenal success with the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. Second, because you're an educator. You were a teacher in your past life and are the parent of 5 children. And I really enjoyed your book, The Success Principles, how to get from where you are to where you want to be. I checked out that book from the library, and there was so much good information I had to go out and buy my own copy so I could dog-ear it and underline it and put all kinds of thoughts in the margins.
Oh, great.
I really enjoyed that book.
Thank you.
Today, the first question I'd like to ask you is, how did you come to write The Success Principles, and what is its relevance to us as homeschoolers?
Well, I've been teaching these kind of things for 30 years, and I noticed that so many people were spending just tons of money on workshops and seminars and books and audio programs that had to do with success and goal setting and manifestation and so forth. They still weren't getting the results that they were seeking in all the areas of their lives. And I've read over 3,000 books, attended hundreds of seminars, and listened to more audio programs than I can count. And I realized that I had discovered through that the missing pieces and was able to put them into an integrated program, and have had literally hundreds of thousands of people in over 20 countries that I've spoken in and trained in start to see amazing results in their lives. And so I realized I wanted to put all this, it's kind of like a success Bible, into one book. And my experience now is I get probably 20 to 50 emails a day, people saying that, my favorite one recently was a kid saying, my mom bought the book. She doesn't read these kind of books. In fact, she hardly reads at all. So I was really curious why she bought a book like this. I stayed up all night reading it. And before I read it, I was getting F's, and I was flunking out of school. I was ditching classes. I was smoking marijuana. And he said, now after reading your book, I'm attending all my classes. I'm getting A's and B's, and I've stopped smoking marijuana. And so I know that with a 15-year-old, just reading a book can have that kind of effect. Imagine what it can do for adults. And that's the kind of thing we get day after day after day. And I think the reason it's so important for people that are into homeschooling is that there are very few curriculum guides that you can go out and buy on what I call life skills. And I think that, when I went to school and when I taught school, and I think many of the reasons people are homeschooling, I was studying history and math and biology, and those were all important. But no one was teaching me how to negotiate my emotions, how to get in and out of relationships, how to share my feelings so that people would listen, how to communicate so that I wouldn't put people down when I was angry, how to express my feelings in a way that doesn't hurt me or other people, how to set goals, how to manage money. There's so many skills that we need to learn to be effective in life that have nothing to do with the traditional academic curriculum that I think as homeschoolers we need to make sure that we're modeling those skills, and that if we're not, we're learning them, and also that we're intentionally teaching them to our kids.
Stephen Covey was talking about the importance of knowing what your values are. You have a really solid base. And I felt the same way about your book, The Success Principles. I felt like it was giving me a really solid base, because these are not, glitzy, airy-fairy ideas. These are really solid, grounded principles that you can get into the habit of applying your life day after day, and then hopefully our children will see us applying these principles, and then they'll live their life regularly setting goals and having good communication skills and some of the important items you talk about in your book. Now, this, of course, it's a thick book.
Yes, it is. It's a big book.
You cover 64 principles in the book. It's unusual to have so many. Why 64?
Well, let's take Steve Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is a fabulous book, and I've read it, and I recommend everyone listening to this call read it. but I truly believe it's incomplete. In fact, this last year he came out with a new book called The Eighth Principle, and I was interviewing Stephen for a radio show about 6 months ago, and I teased him. I said, if you come out with a new principle every year, you'll eventually catch up to my 64. But the point I was making is that so many books have the 3 keys, the 7 habits, the 10 steps, etc. And think of like having a combination lock. If I give you a combination lock, and let's say there are 4 numbers, 7 to the right, 10 to the left, 2 to the right, 13 to the left, and that opens the lock. It doesn't matter if you're black or white, young or old, male or female, live in Iowa or live in California, the lock's going to open. But if you only have 2 of those numbers, it doesn't matter how well you know those numbers, the lock's still not going to open for you. And what I see is so many people have mastered about half the numbers on the combination lock of life and they're frustrated because they're doing those things really well. They take a seminar on communication skills or visualization or goal setting, whatever it might be, memory skills, etc., and yet they still don't have what they want. And so what I'm looking at is what is that combination? Just like if you make a cake and you leave out the eggs or you leave out the flour, it's not going to work. And you could have all the other ingredients perfectly measured. So the idea is you got to have them all. And I really believe that, this book contains the core ones that people need to know to make anything happen anywhere in their life, anytime.
I really like that idea of a recipe for success, because sometimes you think that if I just work harder, I'll succeed. But really, if you don't have the right recipe, you're just working harder at a faulty recipe.
Exactly. It's the old thing that practice makes perfect. Not really. If you're practicing the wrong things, it doesn't make perfect. So it's that old phrase, perfect practice makes perfect.
And the combination lock idea, too, is no matter how hard you work or your nose to the grindstone approach in doing that combination, if you only have half the numbers, the lock's not going to open.
Yeah, my dad's a good example. He worked really, really hard. I mean, one year he sold Christmas trees to try to make extra money for the family, worked every night for a month from Thanksgiving to Christmas, and at the end of that, he had $3.22 profit. And it was just an example of how his life always was. And there were some core key principles that my dad didn't have. One of them was listening to feedback. He always said, my way or the highway, as long as you live in my house, you live by my rules. He wasn't open to anyone saying, Dad, there might be a better way. And that one little principle cost him success all through his life.
Now, unfortunately, we're not going to have time to cover all 64 principles in the hour we have together. So let's look at the ones that are the most relevant to our listeners today. The first principle in the book is take 100% responsibility for your life and your results. What do you mean by that, and how can homeschoolers use that principle with our own children?
Well, taking 100% responsibility for your life means you have to give up complaining about the way things are, blaming anyone else for the way they are, and making excuses. My first mentor was a man named W. Clement Stone in Chicago. He was a self-made multimillionaire. He was worth $600 million, Rebecca. I mean, it was just, he'd be a billionaire today. And he took me under his wing, and he decided he would teach me the principles he used, and then if I would promise to turn around and teach them to kids and teachers at that time, and I made that promise. And he really, the first thing he asked me was, do you complain and blame and whine and do all those things? I said, well, sometimes. He says, you're not taking 100% responsibility. And he said, if you're going to be successful, you have to act as if everything that happens to you, you created it. And then ask yourself, what did I do to create that, and how can I stop creating that in the future? And then a few years later, a therapist taught me a wonderful formula that I teach in my seminars. I put in the book, it's E plus R equals O. And if anyone's taking notes on this call, this is one to write down. E plus R equals O. It stands for the events of your life, that's the E, plus your responses, the R, equals the outcomes you get. And if you don't like the outcomes, you're overweight, you don't have enough money, your kids aren't learning at the rate you expect them to at home, you're getting along not well with your parents, you don't have as many friends as you'd like, whatever it is, that's an outcome. And if you don't like the outcome, what most people in North America do and around the world is they blame the events. And the funny thing is the events just are. The tsunamis happen, Hurricane Katrina happens, the economy happens, the president gets elected, whatever. Our response to that is what produces the outcome. And if we don't like the outcomes, quit blaming the events and start changing your responses. And here's the cool thing. There's only 3 kinds of R's or responses in life. There's the thoughts you think, the images you hold in your head, and the behaviors that you engage in. That includes the words you speak. So let's just look at thoughts for a minute. We think 50,000 thoughts a day, and many of those thoughts are negative. I can't do this, I'm not an actor, I can't sing, blah, blah, blah. And those thoughts I demonstrate in my seminars and in my curriculum guide that I have, where you can put your arm out to the side and have someone push down on it, kind of test how strong you are. Then have yourself say, I can't sing or I can't play the piano, any I can't statement, your arm instantly goes weak, can't hold it up. If you remember a failure in life, your